Hey guys, it's Doran, CEO Culture Matters. So the last 2 weeks, unbeknownst to myself, until I checked myself into the doctor's office, I had a whole slew of illnesses, strep throat, ear infections. Didn't even notice. And where am I going with this? Because I was so excited about working through my purpose. See, I don't have a job. That sounds really sloth. I live through my purpose. I get up every morning and I go to bed every night not wanting to go to sleep because I can't wait to get up and learn something. Now I sound like a freaking nerd. Well, being a nerd is cool. I can't wait to learn so I can share it with somebody and inspire them to be better, basically. So where am I going with this? I got really sick for basically running myself in the ground. After forcing myself, and business partners like, listen, go home, stay home, and don't do anything. Of course I slept, but of course what did I do? I got a lot of books in my apartment. I started reading. I picked up this book called The Hilton Dynasty, basically this huge novel about the Hilton Empire. Now I just started collaborating a new business in the niche of hotel industry, which I won't get into. So obviously it helps to learn more about it. And I just got to share with you this story. It's freaking amazing. So if you don't know anything about the Hilton Dynasty other than Paris Hilton and her ability to brand herself amazingly, basically 1906, Conrad, who was her father was Rick, her grandfather was Baron, and his father was Conrad. Wow, that's how do you even remember that? I don't even know. Well, when you sit in your house for 3 days straight and read a 500-page book like a crazy person, basically. So Paris Hilton, who we know, Nikki Hilton, her brother Baron, their father Rick, one of 8 children, I don't even know how this is coming out, one of 8 children's father Baron inherited the throne, I guess you could say, of the Hilton Empire from Conrad, who had 2 sons and a daughter, Francesca, 1 son, Nikki, and then Baron. And Conrad started the whole thing, and it went like this. Basically, in 1906 or 7, his father, who was a pretty successful businessman out in the West, had a business, and it was starting to go down. There was a mini depression, and one night, he gets everybody together, this big house, 10 bedrooms, and he sits the family down, him, his wife Mary, and they get 2 other kids, and Conrad, who's 19, and he says, listen, we are in financial straits here. We got to put our heads together to figure out what should we do to get out of it. And Conrad goes, we have 6 bedrooms that we could rent out for $2.50 a day and make this a hotel. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner served. Mom and sis can cook. I'll help with the bags. Dad, we can do it. And Gus, his father, goes, that's a good idea. Within a few weeks, everyone in the area knew that the luxury Hilton, you could stay there for a quick short-term rental on your travels. Now, it's funny because look at what, and we'll get into this, but 100 years later in 2007, Airbnb started with 2 guys on a mattress renting it out, or 2 guys in an apartment can't afford rent, and renting out their mattress for a short-term rental. So, that's just mind-blowing to me, right? 100 years later, look what happens. Well, so it worked out, and fast forward 10 years, Gus ended up getting back business, very successful. Conrad ended up going to the military. He's in Paris, dancing, having fun. No more hotel business. Interesting how life works, right? Henry Ford, where am I going with this? He invents the car. Gus, Conrad's father, buys the first car ever in his town, like a Model T or something, and crashes and dies. So the first person to buy a car in the town, the first person to die. It was terrible. However, if he hadn't, there may never been a Hilton Dynasty. Why? Conrad came home, and that's when he decided to get into business. He ended up buying a hotel called the Mobley. He had $5,000. He raised the rest from his mom, Mary, who believed in him till the day she died. 40 rooms it had. He turned it into this big, massive success. It was time of the gold rush and stuff, or some kind of business going on. So there was lots of renters, lots of money. He built this big empire of 6 or 7 hotels. Then the Depression happened. Now, how can we relate to this? I don't know about you guys watching, if you've ever been in financial straits, even if you hadn't had a business and every credit card is calling you, you want to focus on your business, but you're thinking about money, there's every reason to quit. You can file bankruptcy in America and you don't get in trouble. In London, if you can't even file bankruptcy. In India, if you file bankruptcy, you might die. We're lucky in America. We could do that stuff. Conrad didn't. In the Depression, everybody went out of business in hotels. He didn't file bankruptcy. He made it work. He cut corners he had. He had such a culture, and this is what really made me want to read the book. He had his culture down, pat, who he was. He was literally like consciously capitalistic in an era that didn't exist. Meaning, if you study Whole Foods, John Mackey talking about conscious capitalism, caring about your employees so they care about the customer, Conrad Hilton was that guy. Because he was that guy, I would argue that that's why he made it happen. He even had one employee that gave him his life savings just to keep the business going. It wasn't a lot of money, but it's funny, it helped. And that employee ended up becoming one of the guys that ran the company years later. So, fast forward many years, Conrad Hilton passes at 91. And I'm really getting to the story. I mean, the ups and downs of the guy's life. It was like that Great Gatsby kind of figure that built this huge thing but was really lonely. He didn't fall in love till he was like 88. And then the dramatic stuff where he had a daughter with a woman 30 years his junior, and all the crazy stuff that transpired. But at the end of the day, Conrad Hilton built a dynasty. When he passed, the biggest takeaway for me, it's funny because Bill and Melinda Gates are doing the same thing, right? It says in the Bible, if you give someone a fish, they'll be hungry, but if you teach them to fish, they'll never starve. When he passed, he only inherited down 1% of his wealth to his family. 99% of it went to his foundation, the Hilton Foundation. When he passed, his wealth was equivalent to billions. He had hundreds of hotels at that point. Like when he was done, there were 100 hotels, and he gave Barron the option to buy 750,000 shares, which was nothing. And he ended up having to fight to take over the company. But he was okay with that because the culture of the family was grit, hard work, determination, no handouts. And look what happened. They built this huge legacy that in the early 2000s, Barron sold for billions and billions and billions of dollars and did the same thing his father did. He kept about 3%, put the rest into the foundation, and here we are today. Now, literally, that's a mouthful. And I keep talking and talking and talking about the Hilton Dynasty and all the great things and all the negative things and all the things that inspired me to be a better person. But I guess the final point to make with this is, shoot, what do people do with their time? I was sick over the weekend, and instead of just being bitter about it, I rested and decided to become a better version of myself by standing on the shoulders of a giant that I would want to emulate. So I guess the takeaway is this. When you do good, you get good at a life. And Conrad, me, and you, we all have the same amount of time. How are you spending it? This is Doran, CEO Culture Matters. I hope this story was valuable to you. You learned something, you could draw from it and invest into your future. And you guys have a great day.